started. Visitors will retire behind the rails and the members take their seats. We'll get started. Thank you for your cooperation. Before we start, I'm going to ask anyone, the last couple of weeks we've been having some intermittent cell phones and other electronic devices go off, so I'm going to ask anyone that has a cell phone or any other type of electronic device that makes noise, so please cut it off or turn it on silent. I'd really appreciate your cooperation on that. To give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Pastor Nate Preisinger of the Reformation Lutheran Church. He is here today as the guest of Councilwoman Cherelle Parker. I would ask all members, guests, and visitors to please rise.
Thank you, President Clark.
You're welcome.
Thank you especially to Councilwoman Cherelle Parker, who I am here at her invitation this morning. I bring the council greetings from Reformation Lutheran Church in East Mount Airy, where I have the privilege to serve as pastor. I have been there for just over a year, and in that short time have learned that these people whom God has entrusted to me care about their neighborhood deeply, care about this city deeply, and so it is with humility that I'm before you today representing these people who I love so much. And it is such an honor to be able to offer a word of prayer for this body and its work here this morning. Just a brief reminder before I begin, it is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And while we could debate if this is just a holiday created by greeting card companies in order to boost their sales in the middle of winter, I would instead invite us to consider the underlying message of this day, which is simply to love. Here we are in Philadelphia, literally the city of brotherly love, on Valentine's Day. And certainly that guy Jesus, who I know so well, had a lot to say about loving your neighbor. And so at this time where there seems to be so much political division and hate-filled actions in our country, I would just want to take a moment to remind us that love is always good policy. I'd also like to take a moment to remind the members of the City Council about the tremendous opportunity that they have to enact policies of love. As Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, we have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. My hope is that this great city that I call home, this great city where I work and serve, might become more true to its name. A city where neighbors treat one another with love, a city where policies are enacted that love and honor the dignity of all people. With all that said, let us pray. Holy and gracious God, your Son Jesus provided us with a glimpse of your heavenly kingdom where everyone is treated with love. And so we pray this day and every day that the world might begin to look more like the kingdom of God. We pray for an end to violence, for an end to greed, for an end to injustice and an end to racism. We pray for an end to the diabolical cycles of poverty that cripple so many. And we pray that more people, Lord, would wake up to their privilege and make room for those voices that are so often ignored. Holy God, bless this city council, bless these leaders, bless them and help all those who hold power throughout our city to understand that the power they have been given is a trust from you to be used, not for personal glory or profit, but for the service of the people. Drive from these leaders all cynicism, selfishness, and corruption, and guide their work with a spirit of wisdom and charity. Lord, in this city where the history of love, justice, and liberty is so strong, we pray for more of the same in the future. May the actions and decisions made here this day be inspired by your Holy Spirit. May they bring our city closer to your vision for this world. Bless this gathering, Lord. Bless all those who are gathered here. May we be your hands and feet in this world, working for justice, advocating for peace, and always, always extending love to our neighbors, just as you always extend your love to us. We pray all of this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, so much. We appreciate you. Council, be at ease. Thank you again, Pastor. Our next order of business is approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 7th, 2019, and the chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 7th, 2019 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 7th, 2019 stand approved. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and the journal is approved. Our next order of business is request for leave of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the majority, there are no requests of leave of absence today.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair now recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Republicans, leave of absence is requested for Councilman Al Taubenberger.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. The record shall reflect that Councilman Taubenberger has a leave of absence. This time I would like to dispense with the regular order of business, and I would like to thank everyone who has taken time out of their busy day to come down to witness their government in action. We genuinely appreciate you being here. We hope that your stay here today is a knowledgeable one, but more importantly, a pleasurable one, so much so that you come back again. So again, thank you for being here. Today we have no presentations, so our next order of business is communications, and the chair requests that the Sergeant of Arms delivers the messages to the Chief Clerk from the Mayor. Mr. Decker, would you please read those messages?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter calling on the General Assembly to provide for a decent living wage. And an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter calling on the General Assembly to provide for a decent living wage as approved by resolution of the City Council, fixing the date of a special election for such purpose, prescribing the form of ballot question to be voted on, and authorizing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. You have any additional communications?
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf, I offer one bill. On behalf of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, I offer one resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance establishing a parking regulation on 13th Street, West Side, Master Street to Jefferson Street.
Refer to committee.
And a privilege resolution celebrating the selection of Yasmin Ward Singh, unburied, Singh for the 2019 One Book, One Philadelphia program.
This week's calendar, chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I offer one bill and two resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Chapter 16-300 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Maintenance and Supervision by adding a new section requiring that all city buildings and facilities install and maintain life-sustaining medical equipment including automated external defibrillators, AEDs, and advanced first aid kits, and requiring the installation of automated external defibrillators in connection with capital projects.
Refer to committee.
And a privilege resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings to examine the state of Philadelphia's EMS system and the areas where additional support is needed to ensure that the Philadelphia Fire Department is equipped with the necessary tools to perform their job.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Committee on Education to hold hearings to determine the feasibility for implementing a program in the School District of Philadelphia which provides exposure to CPR training as a part of the high school curriculum prior to a student's graduation.
Also on today's calendar, chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. Today I have one privilege resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution recognizing and honoring Linda Norris for her dedication and service to the East Falls community.
And that will be on today's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Council President, I have one non-privileged resolution and two bills.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
An ordinance amending Chapter 9200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Commercial Activities on Streets by restricting sidewalk sales on portions of Woodland Avenue,
Refer to committee.
and an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Webster Street and South 18th Street, Fitzwater Street and South 20th Street,
Refer to
Christian Street between South Broad Street and South 16th Street, Carpenter Street and South 24th Street, Catherine Street and South 20th Street, Bainbridge between 24th Street and Schuylkill Avenue.
Refer to committee.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 30th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that will be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. On behalf of Councilwoman Sanchez, no bills or resolutions will be introduced today. On my behalf, I have two privileged resolutions for today.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution honoring and celebrating the 40th Blue Cross Broad Street Run.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the Committee on Streets and Services to hold hearings regarding the City of Philadelphia's commitment to its recycling program.
Also on today's calendar, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one bill and one resolution, and I wish to be recognized for remarks at the title of both are read.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
An ordinance providing for the submission of the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter calling on the General Assembly to provide for a decent living wage.
Refer to committee.
And a non-privileged resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter calling on the General Assembly to provide for a decent living wage and providing for the submission of the amendment to the electors of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of and in partnership with the administration, I am proud to join with the co-sponsors, Councilman Mark Squilla and Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, in introducing this legislation because far too often the collective voice of Philadelphia residents does not seem to be heard at the state level. This legislation will put the following question on the May 21st ballot. Shall the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to call on the General Assembly to either increase the Pennsylvania minimum wage now so that it reaches $15 an hour in stages by 2025, or, Mr. President, allow the City of Philadelphia itself to provide for a decent, family-sustaining living wage for working Philadelphians. With such a ballot question, we shall allow the citizens of Philadelphia to formally weigh in on a state-level policy issue. For those who may not know, Pennsylvania's minimum wage of $7.25 an hour has been unchanged for the past 10 years, while the cost of living has risen more than 13% since 2009. Contrary to what many people believe, the average employee earning minimum wage is not a teenager working a part-time job. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the typical worker who would benefit from a $15 minimum wage is a 35-year-old woman with some college-level coursework who works full-time. And raising the minimum wage to $15 will be particularly significant for workers of color. Nearly 2/5, that's 38% of African Americans, and 1/3, that's 33% of Latinos, would get a raise if the federal minimum wage were increased to $15. Now, furthermore, Pennsylvanians as a whole would benefit if that action ever took place. If the minimum wage were incrementally increased to $15 per hour, by the time of full-time implementation, over 250,000 of Philadelphia residents, that's nearly half of our workforce, they would be affected by the wage increase. Now, my co-sponsors on this legislation have been avid supporters of raising the minimum wage in Philadelphia. We also know that Mayor Kenny signed into law legislation sponsored by our colleague, Councilman Mark Squilla, that will make sure that all employees of the city and city contractors earn what they deserve, which is a minimum wage of $15 per hour. And just 2 weeks ago, our colleague, Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, introduced a resolution urging the Pennsylvania State Legislature to pass Governor Wolf's proposal to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour with a pathway to $15 an hour for all workers in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And her resolution is on final passage today. Raising the minimum wage, Mr. President, is not a new idea. And while I love for Pennsylvania to be a leader on this issue, we are actually well behind others. Currently, there are 31 states and 41 cities in the United States that have minimum wage levels higher than the federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour. Furthermore, this is very important to note, private local employers like Jefferson have recently raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour without any legislative incentive to do so. Jefferson did that on its own, and they are to be commended. Philadelphians have a right to counteract the narrative that raising the minimum wage is a job killer. This ballot question will allow Philadelphians to say, if they so choose, that raising the minimum wage is not a job killer. In reality, it's an inequality killer. It's a poverty reducer, it's a people dignifier, and it's a work-life balancer. And most importantly, it gives Philadelphians the right to make sure their voices are heard. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues, for your patience.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and that shall be referred to the appropriate committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Good morning, Council President. I have one non-privileged resolution I'd like to be heard after the title's read.
Thank you, Councilman.
A non-privileged resolution calling on the state legislature of Pennsylvania, the governor of Pennsylvania, and the federal government to mandate these certain education initiatives in Pennsylvania and to mandate these initiatives nationwide.
Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President. These initiatives, I just want to elaborate, nothing that's new, but the mandatory requirement of teaching pre-K to 12th grade financial literacy, technology, including coding, 9th to 12th grade teaching entrepreneurship classes, and 9th to 12th grade having children have the opportunity to work on a job 1 day a week and go to school for 4 days a week. This is great for Philadelphia, it's great for the state of Pennsylvania, and it's good for the whole nation. And I met with Governor Wolf, I believe is a supporter of this. Congressman Evans is a supporter. I'm working with State Rep Jordan Harris and the legislature to try to make this happen. But this is a bipartisan issue. It's not Democrat or Republican. This is about making sure our children have the right tools when they grow up to be adults, to be successful in their lives. So I hope, by the way, it's supported by all members of council, and I thank all members. I just hope we can get this done in Harrisburg. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. That shall be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Thank you, Council President. I don't have any bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer two bills.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance establishing no truck parking and tow-away regulations on both sides of McNulty Road from Southampton Road to Townsend Road.
For the committee.
And an ordinance establishing no truck parking and tow-away regulations on Townsend Road.
For the committee, Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer two bills.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Rittner Street and South 12th Street, Camac Street and Moore Street, South 11th Street and Tasker Street, South 12th Street and Tasker Street, Morris Street and South 9th Street, Morris Street and South 6th Street, Morris Street and South 11th Street.
For the committee.
And an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of Subcode PM, the Philadelphia Property Maintenance Code of Title 4 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled General Requirements, to add provisions relating to bed-bug infestation, adding Chapter 94500 of the Code entitled Responsibilities Concerning Bed-Bug Infestations, to establish various requirements for landlords and tenants relating to bed-bug infestation, and to establish requirements related to bed-bugs in connection with certain residential occupancies and the sale of residential property.
Also referred to committee. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bils.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer one bill with co-sponsors Blackwell, Squilla, O, Johnson, O'Neill, and Jones.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
An ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2019 from the Grants Revenue Fund, the Director of Finance Provision for Other Grants, to the General Fund, the Police Department.
Referred to committee, and Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I offer no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions, and our next order of business is report from committee, and the Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell for a report from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
The Committee on Finance reports out one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Decker, please read the report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Finance, to which is referred Bill number 181103, entitled An Ordinance Amending Chapter 193900 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Tax Exemptions for Long-Time Owner Occupants of Residential Properties, to revise the standards for eligibility and the benefit determination. Respectfully reports it has considered and amended the same, and returns the attached bill to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of Bill number 181103.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 181103. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. This bill will be on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilman Squilla for a report from the Committee of Streets and Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading this day of the 14 bills that were. Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Streets and Services report 14 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the report.
The Committee on Streets and Services, to which is referred Bill number 180996, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Revision of Lines and Grades in a Portion of City Plan number 118, by striking from the city plan and vacating a widened portion of Warnock Street on the easterly side thereof between Burke Street and Norris Street. And Bill number 181010, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Revision of Lines and Grades in a Portion of City Plan numbers 12S and 19S, by relocating the northeasterly house line and curb line of Tasker Street from Christopher Columbus Boulevard to a point southeasterly therefrom, relocating the southeasterly curb line of said Christopher Columbus Boulevard from Tasker Street to Reed Street, varying distances northwestwardly, and relocating a portion of the southwesterly curb line of Dickinson Street from said Christopher Columbus Boulevard to a point northwesterly therefrom, a uniform distance northeastwardly. And Bill number 181048, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing Mohammed Taluli to construct, own, and maintain a proposed exterior stairway at 4955 through 57 Frankfurt Avenue. And Bill number 181065, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations on Germantown Avenue, East Horter Street to Gorgas Lane, both sides. And Bill number 181097, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a Parking Regulation on Haverford Avenue, both sides, 31st Street to 32nd Street. And Bill number 181098, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a Parking Regulation on 46th Street, East Side, Larchwood Avenue to Osage Avenue. And Bill number 181099, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations in the Vicinity of Locust Street and South 45th Street, South 46th Street and Spruce Street, South 45th Street and Kingsessing Avenue, Weoder Street and Powelton Avenue, Stowell Street and North 50th Street, Springfield Avenue and Farragut Street, South Mark Street and Spruce Street. And Bill number 181104, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations in the Vicinity of Wilder Street and South 12th Street, Tasker Street and South 8th Street, Garrett Street and South 12th Street, Reed Street and South 12th Street, Dickinson Street and South 9th Street, South 11th Street and Wharton Street. And Bill number 190009, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a No Parking Regulation on Ivy Hill Road in the vicinity of Mansfield Avenue. And Bill number 190010, entitled An Ordinance Amending Chapter 122700 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Permit Parking Districts, by creating a new Permit Parking District 36 in the vicinity of Cotman Avenue, Roosevelt Boulevard, and the Tacony Creek. And Bill number 190011, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 9213 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Farmers Markets, by revising the limitations on a permissible location on Castor Avenue. And Bill number 190014, entitled An Ordinance Granting Permission to Vincent Capello, owner and operator of Vinnie's Fruit and Produce, located in the right-of-way on the north side of Dickinson Street between 9th Street and 10th Street, to install, use, and maintain certain electrical wires, conduits, and appurtenances in, under, and over the right-of-way on the north side of Dickinson Street between 9th Street and 10th Street. And Bill number 190015, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Restrictions on East Gowan Avenue, Devon Street to Ardley Street, South Side. And Bill number 190063, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Designation of Bicycle Lanes, to authorize bicycle lanes on North 10th Street and North 13th Street, each from Spring Garden Street to Buttonwood Street, and establishing no stopping regulations within the same limits. Respectfully reports that it is considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended and to permit the first reading this day of the 14 bills that were just read into the record by the clerk.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and probably second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of the 14 bills just reported out of the committee. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. And these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Next order of business is consideration of the calendar. And I note that the bills just reported from committee with the suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had their first reading. They will be on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on our first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan for the purpose of calling up bills and resolutions that are on our final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up for the second reading and final passage calendar today. Bill numbers 190091, 190096, 180834, 190028, 190004, 180820, 180943, and 190007. All other resolutions and bills are being held.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Before we consider the bills and resolutions that are on the final passage calendar today, we will have our public comment session. If you are interested in testifying on a bill or resolution that is on the final passage calendar today, I would ask that you sign up at the table to my left if you have not already done so. When your name is called, you will go to the middle of the council chambers. There's a podium. There's a device on that podium. When the light turns green on that device, it will be your time to speak. When it turns yellow, you will have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. When it turns red, we ask that you please adhere to our guidelines and conclude your remarks. I want to thank you very much for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, if you call the first witness to testify.
Joe Cox, commenting on 190004.
Morning.
Hello. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Joe Cox. 19004, Senior Citizens Low-Income Special Tax Provision. By extending the deadline for low-income seniors to apply for a refund for forgiveness of real estate taxes. I am for this and any bill that aims to help low-income people in the poorest big city. I'm going to read a poem about the reality that we live in. She used to live right there, but she froze right there. Within a block, a few banks. Over there, you can see skyscrapers. Not far, millionaires are living. She used to live right there, but she froze right there. On the streets of Philadelphia, one of many. But they say people over profits. I say prove it. Words are pointless without action. R.I.P. Ginny, one of many.
Thank you for your testimony.
Cora Turpin. Commenting on 190004.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am Dr. Cora Turpin of the Concerned Senior Citizens of Philadelphia. I am also a committee person of the 5th Ward, 23rd Division for over 30 years. I stand in support of Bill 190004, which provides tax relief for people of low and modest income. I pray that you have the courage to eliminate the barriers and freeze the actual value initiative for all citizens, regardless of income, at age 65 and above. This bill doesn't do that. It is the middle class that is presently exempt from your consideration of the tax reform that is bearing the burden of all these AVI taxes. These are your parents who worked all their lives to educate you and pay for their homes that you are now abandoning. These are the people who bought homes in Philadelphia under threat of losing their jobs as a city employee in the 1970s. These are the people who stabilized their neighborhoods at that time to make them desirable places to live when the flight of property owners from the city was excessively problematic. I refuse to think that the present city council persons cannot understand that the AVI is based on the cost of construction. As developers build new structures in old neighborhoods all over the city, the value of property rises and will continue to rise. Construction costs never go down. As the AVI sucks away the buying power of people on fixed incomes, the number of foreclosures for formerly middle-class seniors will increase. Don't live too long. It is mathematically impossible to sustain rising taxes on fixed incomes. Homelessness of the middle class is imminent. City Council has provided tax breaks for the rich and for the poor. Let the middle class survivors have the peace of mind and a home in the neighborhoods they settled. After all, you can depend on their voting in every election.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Amber Hikes. Commenting on 180834 and 180820.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Amber Hikes, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of LGBT Affairs for the City of Philadelphia. And I am proudly in support of Resolution 180834, which is an amendment to change certain gender-specific references, councilman, councilman, councilmanic, to gender-neutral references such as council member. Titles such as councilman create an environment in which women and non-binary people have to carve out space for themselves in ways that men do not. This is not only in order to be addressed with accurate language, but to exist meaningfully and hold power in that space. The barriers created by this type of exclusive language keep gender minorities from accessing leadership positions that enable them to make positive social change. Representation of marginalized communities in positions of leadership is invaluable to addressing the needs of these communities. Creating a culture in which non-binary people can be properly identified and affirmed within city council roles fosters positive representation in the city's government. For Philadelphia to actively include gender-neutral language in one of the city's oldest governing documents would set a monumental precedent for others to follow. This action would also demonstrate our recognition of the changing landscape in our society. In short, this legislation gives transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people a chance. It says that they are worthy of being included in our city's government and that they are worthy of the effort it takes to represent them. We all believe this to be true, but we do not demonstrate it enough. So this legislation is an opportunity for the city of Philadelphia to pull up an extra seat at the table and invite trans, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people to sit down. This legislation shows that members of our non-binary community are not just included, but they are also needed and wanted. So the Office of LGBT Affairs wholeheartedly supports Bill number 1802834 and any measures to affirm and support trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. This is a simple change with an incredible impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony.
Henry Cios. Henry Cias.
Thank you. Next name.
Clark King. Commenting on 180834.
Good morning.
My name is Clark King, and I am speaking regarding 180834. I am not convinced that gender-specific statutes or legislation is necessary or will increase civility. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. Anyway, I don't think the resolution will increase civility among the members of society. I want to point out that men and women, sex and children, are economy drivers. And what is happening is that the economic rights and interest of the worker, men and women, are being driven into obscurity by political correctness. The child is precious. Financialization's hostility, indicated by low-wage economy, high unemployment, and housing dedicated to finances, gentrification, demands our focus and resolution. Irrationalism must be identified. We must recognize that poverty is caused by the Wall Street system and work to undo the damage that financialization has done to this great city and the whole country. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Dwight Franks. Commenting on 190096.
Good morning.
Yes, hello, I want to thank you for the resolution and designation of 190096.
Sir, just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Dwight Franks. I'm a veteran and a block captain, and I thank you for the resolution of 190096. I've been having some problems trying to find where to go and get help as a veteran. So I thank you, and I'll be visiting your office very soon. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Joe Danahill. Commenting on 190096, 181005A, and 190074.
Morning.
Good morning. This is an official decree of the people, and writ mandamus quo warranto as such requires immediate action and remedy. Every week, council, mayor, governor, and others transfer private property to the government, probably illegally. Can a first-class city treat its people like they are second-class citizens? Last week, I witnessed an Oscar-worthy performance. The council I know hears your home was stolen, then unanimously approves spending upwards of $120 million HUD, low-income housing money, to build a mall on top of my stolen home. Your Constitution, your oath Constitution, and law-violating actions speak louder than your words. Socialism, fascism, and communism restrict and deny property rights. Article 4, Section 4 requires federal government stop the invasion of rights and maintain a Republican form of government. In cases of incompetent legislators, look around you, Executive or presidential action is required. Given this RICO-style conspiracy to deny rights, Attorney General is required to prosecute. The constitutions require immediate remedy of this breach of law, breach of clothes, breach of fiduciary duty. Your oath of office requires you to act or face prison. 42 U.S.C. 1982, 1983, 1985, 1986, 1987, 18 U.S.C. 241, 242, 2381, 2384. PA Constitution, Article 1, Sections 1 through 28. 26 PA CSA 703, 705, 708, 709, 711, 712, 713, 716, 902, and other laws listed in SCOTUS 158965, 141330, 144056 appear violated. I call on the federal and commonwealth governments to perform their constitutional obligations, to investigate and prosecute all involved in the theft and illegal deed transfer of my home, 1038 West Wyoming Avenue, the denial of God-given 42 U.S.C. 1982 property rights for 25 years is egregious, extraordinary, oath-violating, and requires immediate remedy. A just government must obey the rule of law. This color all government must have its charter to govern revoked until a constitutionally compliant government is installed. Public servants cannot refuse a sworn duty to act any more than a fireman can refuse to fight a fire. The sovereign people require oath, constitution, and law be enforced, and jail is required for all who violate oath, constitution, or law. I remind council, it takes a lot of cooperation to create and allow this monumental corruption.
Thank you for your testimony.
Agbana Higgins. Commenting on 170-408.
Good morning.
Great morning. How you doing? I'm commenting on 170-408, introduced by Reynolds Brown and Gim. Resolution calling on and urging the school district of Philadelphia to permanently prohibit.
Sir, just state your name for the record.
Ogbonna Higgins, O-G-B-O-N-N-A, Higgins.
Thank you.
To permanently prohibit the suspension of elementary age students from 1st through the 5th grade. I commented on this about maybe 6 months ago, and it's absolutely a no-brainer. But I also want to, I want to also congratulate Reynolds Brown for her service for City Council for the past 20 years as well, and also Helen Gim for being the new drive for education, And there's a need also, in addition to not suspending children, there's a need for safety in our schools. And I just had a meeting with some of the police officers from the school district, and they only have about 300 police officers. And in 2000, there were about 700. And there's just a lot of issues that's happening that needs to be addressed as well. On top of the fact that we need a 21st century education system that deals with science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So absolutely, don't suspend children under the 5th grade. But we have to develop tools so that we can prevent the violence that's coming, obviously, because our children are not being educated and they're not jobs being available for them because they're not. There are tons and tons and tons of jobs in STEM, in the STEM area. So that's one of the reasons, and don't forget that our children have to walk through these filthy, litter-filled streets, so we need to address those areas as well. So, that's one of the reasons why I'm supporting this bill, because of it being an obvious thing, but I'm also glad to say that I hope that I can join Councilwoman Helen Gim as a council person, here in these chambers to help to shape the minds of the children of Philadelphia so that we truly can be a 21st century world-class citizen, a world-class city where we don't have all these problems and we have so many solutions to these problems, but we have to be innovative and we have to, we have to use the technology that we have. Thank you. Okay. And that's it. So, yeah, I definitely am in favor of 170-408. And have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for your testimony.
There are no other speakers in the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you. Now consider our bills and resolutions on the final passage calendar. And Mr. Decker, if you could read the title of 190091.
A resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly to pass Senate Bill 14, which seeks to enhance public safety and further justice by ensuring that probation decisions are fair and consistent.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I make a motion.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those approved, opposed, ayes have it. 190091 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 190096.
A resolution designating the office within City Council that currently serves the needs of veterans and their families as the Office of Veterans Affairs, confirming the continuing responsibility of the Veterans Advisory Commission to provide assistance to that office, and amending and restating Resolution number 060059 as amended by Resolution number 070094 to further provide for the powers and duties of the Veterans Advisory Commission and the method of appointing its commissioners.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer an amendment on your behalf to Resolution Number 190096. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of council. I move for an adoption of the amendment.
Thank you. The amendment to 190096 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. 190096 has been amended, and it will be placed on our second reading. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he did. What are you talking? All right. I already started down this path. Resolution 190096 has been amended. It will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. Mr. Decker, 180834.
A resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to change certain gender-specific references such as councilman, councilmen, and councilmanic to gender-neutral references such as councilmember, councilmembers, and council.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Green for a motion on the resolution. Understanding as a resolution. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Can I speak on the resolution before my motion?
Sure.
Thank you. Men and women, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in our pleasantries and our formalities, on too many bathrooms and far too many painful conversations, long-standing assumptions about a gender binary and male preeminence have lingered in our culture and in our language and in our laws. Our culture has too long attempted to enforce too rigid, mutually exclusive genders upon every person, regardless of their experiences or preference. But I believe that every individual has dignity, that each of us is due the respect to choose not only our own name, but also our own identity. You only need to know Ashleys and Hunters, Lees and Leslies, Sams and Chris's to know that you might need more than a name to know a pronoun. You don't need to have a radical politics to say they and them about an unidentified person. It pervades common speech. To realize a more perfect union, we need to affirmatively change our customers and our linguistic habits to leave pronoun choices to the person in question. That we continue the shift that has brought us police officers, firefighters, and flight attendants where gender titles once stood. Today, I ask my fellow members of council to take one such step to rectify an archaic but unnatural assumption as per our home rule charter that men and only men could, should, or would serve in this august body. I ask that we present to the voters an opportunity to entitle those representative positions to reflect the possibility for each and every citizen, no matter their gender identity, to serve the city. Because in the city of Philadelphia, we should treat all our residents like siblings, equal in the eyes of God and in our laws. With that, Council President, I hope that my colleagues will support this resolution, as well as the supporting bill number 170365. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the resolution be adopted. Because resolution number 180834 is an amendment to the Home Rule Charter, requires 2/3 vote. Therefore, the question now, shall the resolution be adopted? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Cunha Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Councilman Squilla. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. 2/3 of all members of council having voted in the affirmative, resolution 180834 has been adopted. Mr. Decker, 190028.
A resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to provide for the creation of an Office of Immigrant Affairs, to provide for the powers and duties of such office, and to otherwise provide for the incorporation of the office into the city government.
The chair at this point recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez for a motion on the resolution.
I move for its adoption.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the resolution be adopted because resolution number 190028, again, is an amendment to the Home Rule Charter. It requires 2/3 vote. Therefore, this question now, shall the resolution be adopted? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Cunha Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Councilman Squilla. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. 2/3 of all members of council having voted in the affirmative, resolution number 190028 has been adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 190004.
An ordinance amending Chapter 192900 of Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Senior Citizen Low-Income Special Tax Provisions by extending the deadline for low-income seniors to apply for a refund or forgiveness of real estate taxes.
This bill has been heard. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I want to first and foremost thank you for your leadership and working with your staff to, again, extend the senior citizens tax freeze. You know, as we look at development in the city of Philadelphia, some areas are experiencing significant development resulting in gentrification, resulting in the increase of their property taxes. And so as we move forward in the near future with a comprehensive, real program around affordable housing, workforce housing, and senior housing to save those who have really paved the way for development, this initiative goes toward helping individuals, primarily long-term residents who are seniors, to stay inside their homes. And so thank you very much for your leadership. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you for your co-sponsorship. Mr. Decker, this bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Councilman Squilla. Council President Clark.
Aye. Ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present, voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker on 180. 820.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to change certain gender-specific references to gender-neutral references as approved by resolution of the City Council.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Councilman Squilla. Council President Clark.
Aye. That majority of members present, voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker 180. 943.
An ordinance amending Chapter 9, 1100 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fair Practices Ordinance, Protections Against Unlawful Discrimination, by adding a new section prohibiting retail establishments from refusing to accept cash as a form of payment.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the good old dollar bill that's been around since Ben Franklin's been walking the streets, it's written, "This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private." Unfortunately, some places have popped up recently that are called cashless. And that would be fine if everybody had the same access to be able to walk into that coffee shop, sandwich shop, salad place, and buy that product. Unfortunately, it's been estimated nationwide 15 to 20% of people are unbanked, which means they don't have credit and cannot walk into those stores. In Philadelphia, given unfortunately that we're being called the poorest big city in America, that number might be higher. It inordinately affects lower income people, minorities, and immigrants. It's, to me, just a fairness issue. It just does not stop any establishment from accepting credit cards, from any customer giving a credit card as payment. It just says you have to take the monetary unit of the United States of America. So that's why Councilwoman Sanchez and I introduced this bill. We just think it gives everybody, the same opportunity to buy a product. Now, there might be a time in the future where everybody has some kind of access to some kind of card and all, but we're not there now. We're not there today. And all we're saying is that that people should be treated equally, and there shouldn't be, and even if it's unintentional, a sort of tone out there that your business is not welcome here. And that's unfortunately, again, whether it's intentional or not, what's the cashless places I think are given out. So I would hope that members would support this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President. I have some concerns regarding this bill that I just wanted to share. As a city that already places a high burden on businesses, we cannot continue to dictate how entrepreneurs choose to operate their businesses. And as a city, we do need to be careful to pass bills that are specific to our city, because the effect could be to push businesses over the county line. In New Jersey, this type of bill is a statewide application. I also understand that we cannot make everyone happy, but our decisions are based on what's best for the city as a whole. And this bill not only affects businesses like Bluestone and Sweet Green, it places an even larger burden on small business owners across the entire city who take a huge risk to create their business model. I do applaud Councilman Greenlee, and I understand his effort toward fairness and his goal for this bill. I just wish there was some middle ground we could reach that could address the concerns I will now outline. These are the effects I've been told by our departments in the city that this bill could have on our city. Philadelphia will attract fewer businesses. This is a real example. Amazon called the Commerce Department and advised them several times and said they were considering bringing the Amazon Go concept to Philadelphia, but this bill would prevent that. This is a store that would have approximately 100 jobs, and although only a few of these exist nationally, Amazon has made a recent announcement that they're expecting to have 300 of these Amazon Go stores in the next few years. They explicitly told our Commerce Department that this bill would preclude them from coming. Chains like Sweet Green and Bluestone Lane may not open any more stores here and could potentially decide to leave, losing jobs. Other chains are experimenting with this concept nationwide and may choose to pursue it and not expand in Philadelphia. For businesses that value innovation and technology, Philadelphia may not look as attractive. We may be able to estimate the impact of not bringing Amazon, we may go here, but we can only guess how many other businesses may not expand. Cash businesses historically do not report all of their sales. We will experience a loss of revenue through unreported income. Store owners who accept cash seem to have a nightly shortage due to cash errors that occur just from making change. And on the flip side, Sweet Green and Bluestone reported higher sales and profits because of this model, which theoretically could have a small positive impact on the city's sales tax. It's the cash-only stores in the city that really are the challenge to ensure all taxes owed to the city are paid to the city. We want everyone to pay their fair share, which then lowers the overall burden. Cashless business operators state that not having cash on site reduces the incidence of armed robberies and ensures a safer environment for patrons and employees. A reduction in crime is a major benefit to all of us. I also do not believe the government should dictate how entrepreneurs have to operate their business. Long term, the core of this issue is for us to start teaching financial literacy pre-K to 12 and teaching it everywhere in Philadelphia. And while I do understand, and I would like to see that people who don't have credit cards be able to shop there, I'm trying to figure out if there is some middle ground that we could achieve. I totally understand all the issues, and I have empathy for the issues, but I'm concerned about the loss of business taxes for the city, jobs, and the messaging it sends. I'm open to an amendment or adjustments, but I just would like to see some sort of compromise if that's possible. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning again. Councilman Dom's comments, as given through a business lens, are, in my view, not being a businesswoman, in the pure sense of the word, are well taken, and I would not doubt at all that they're not true. On the flip side of that, three things. One, Councilwoman Sanchez often reminds us that we as elected officials should always strike the delicate balance. The decisions we make should not be an either or. The decisions we make on a regular basis, and the challenge for us is how we get to an and. That's number one. Number two, we are the largest, biggest, poorest city in the country with a 26% poverty rate, which continues to be a noose around our necks. And when we are elected to serve others, that means that we have to look out for the least of these. And knowing that we have the largest poverty rate in the country, that fact compels me to look out for the least of these who, quite frankly, can't get a credit card. They're worried about finding the cash, getting the cash, so that they can feed their families. And so while we should be cognizant of large businesses that want to come to Philadelphia, I'd rather not have you if you're not going to be with us to take care of people who can't take care of themselves. I think it's a brilliant idea. I was thrilled to watch the story on CBS this morning with Gayle King, my favorite anchor in the world. And so I applaud Councilman Bill Greenlee for, again, being consistent with his legislative record to look out for the least of these, those who can't afford a business card, those who cannot afford a credit card, period. I rest my case there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've only missed
in my tenure here 2 council sessions. One of them was in my second term, and the other was last week due to my brother. I will never miss another council session, God willing, because in my absence, my good colleague, Councilman Greenlee, decided not to run again. So I guess because I wasn't here, he made that decision. But I'm here for you now, brother. And I want to say that throughout my history dealing with him, he has usually, if not 100% of the time, 99% of the time, been on the right side of the issue, and that is the least of thee. The least of thee. And when we talk about the impoverished, I think of one of my aunts who will remain nameless because she got mad at me because I shouted her out, and she actually watches these things. She keeps her cash still in a napkin or a handkerchief that she ties up and keeps in a special place. And she does not trust banks. She does not trust Mac cards. She checks everything twice on receipts, and she is not where my colleague is. And what the compromise for me is, not now. I didn't say not ever, but not now, until we catch up with the economy and the vast majority of people are working in a system where they can afford to have a bank account and a credit card, then we can reconsider this. But until then, my auntie matters to me. You know, she may be, but she's mine. And I want to make sure that she is as comfortable as the new people that have chosen this path of plastic when she goes to the store and doesn't have to walk an extra 2 blocks because she chose the legal tender of this country. So I will be supporting my colleague's bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. But very quickly, and Councilman Jones, you were right. Once you couldn't talk me out of not running, so I figured let me do this before you try to change my mind. Okay, so I appreciate that. But I just want to say quickly, I understand where Councilman Dom's coming from. And he talked about a middle ground. We did try to find middle ground here. We have a number of exceptions in the bill. We tried to work with groups like Amazon to try to, as best as possible, address their needs. I will say, though, just saying, if you do this, we will not come, doesn't work for me. Let's talk and try to work stuff out, but just don't threaten us. That doesn't work for me. All right? So in any event, I think this is a reasonable bill. There could be a time in the future, as a couple of the members have said, where we don't need it. I think we need it now. I think we need to be fair to everybody, and we don't need to send the message that your business is not welcome here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me start by thanking my colleague, Councilman Bill Greenlee, for whom I have a great deal of respect. Your track record in doing your best to ensure that you proffer legislation that would benefit the least of thee has been, unquestioned and unrivaled, and I want to thank you for that. I also appreciate, Councilman Greenlee, your comments about the percentage of Philadelphians who are unbanked. And Councilman Jones, you just gave me a flashback when you talked about that, what do you call it, the handkerchief. It was a handkerchief for my grandmother, and she really did roll it up, and she would pin it and stick it somewhere. So, I really do get it. But I want to just note for the record that I will be voting no on this legislation, and I do so because I represent a neighborhood that is 95% deemed a middle neighborhood, Mr. President. And just for the record, for those of you who are not familiar with the 9th Councilmatic District, Cheltenham Avenue is the dividing line between Philadelphia and Montgomery County. With Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church there, the largest Baptist church in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we've seen an influx of new growth and new development in Cheltenham Mall, in Cedarbrook Mall, and I am grateful for it all, because our people, although it's Montgomery County, you know, I constantly remind those who represent the county that this is a regional economy, and Philadelphia helps keep those malls alive. However, what often gets lost in the discussion is that Wadsworth Avenue, Ogons Avenue, Stenton Avenue, Old York Road, Rising Sun, and 5th Street, they are trying to compete with those malls. In addition to that, when I got elected in 2015, my first order of business after getting reacquainted with this district was to make sure we secured funding to get a study done of commercial quarters throughout the 9th Councilmatic District on the number of vacancies, the types of businesses, and what we could do to physically enhance the aesthetic appeal. With that being said, I went to the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce, and I told them, I think you guys should do a better job of encouraging new retailers to move out of Center City and into the veins and on the hearts of our neighborhood commercial quarters, where we are bleeding because our small neighborhood-based businesses are trying to compete with Walmart and the others who are in those malls. And so while I understand the inequity associated with those who are banked and those who are not, at the same time, I'm thinking about the number of vacancies that are on those corridors, and what I would much rather do is get those businesses who may have this model, get them to agree to open up some stores in some of our neighborhoods and let them see through the traffic from actual consumer foot traffic that there are a number of people who come into those stores and who want to patronize them, but they don't because their model is flawed, because they don't accept cash. So I'd rather get the owner to relocate. Locate in my district, open up the business, see how well you're doing with your model. Then I want you to see how much you're losing because you're not accepting cash. Because, Mr. President, quite frankly, you know, I don't have the luxury that some of my colleagues have who are in these sexy neighborhoods where new businesses are coming in and they're banging down the doors to get every little swath of land that they can get. No, it's the other way for us. We're trying to encourage people to come. And I don't have the luxury to say this model won't work for my neighborhood. I need to get them there first. And I want to again say to my colleague, Councilman Greenlee, respect you, respect your work, respect the intent of this bill. But for the reasons I just noted, I will be voting nay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Down.
I just want to back up what my colleague, Councilwoman Parker, said, and this study may not be, it's out there, it came out in December. It's actually about the beverage tax, and I think it's a learning lesson for us. And I voted for the beverage tax. But the lesson that came out from 3 economists, MIT, University of Michigan, University of Wisconsin, they did an independent study, not from the beverage, not from the administration. The study showed 42% of the sales lost in the city were recaptured within 0 to 6 miles of the city line and the suburbs. No change past 6 miles, but that 42% that we lost in the city was recaptured 0 to 6 miles outside of the city. And so my point is that I just would like us, if this was a statewide bill, I'd have a different opinion, but when we pass bills that are specific to the city, it does hurt those neighborhoods on the borders of our city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chair. Recognize Councilwoman Keone Sanchez.
Thank you. I, again, as a lead co-sponsor with Councilman Greenlee of this legislation, I think, you know, all of us agree here in the city of Philadelphia that we want businesses and we want small businesses. But we also want to send a message to businesses that are locating in any part of the city of Philadelphia that they are here to serve everyone. And so sometimes unintended consequences by business models need to be revisited and around who they're excluding, particularly when you have certain product lines. I remind folks that it is the poverty rate of the city of Philadelphia, that determines the rate of federal contributions to the city of Philadelphia to build out the infrastructure that would now allow us to have these choice neighborhoods. Poor people help subsidize and build the core of this city, and they deserve to be able to go to any part of the city and consume at any given time. I do think that all business models evolve, and as we should spend as much time pushing back. We haven't had a good pushback on banks since the councilwoman back here, about how do we get that unbanked population access to products. I know Councilman Green had hearings on a municipal bank. The fact of the matter is that we're going to always have people challenged around this banking, whether it's because of our lack of immigration situation. And we want businesses to share our core values, that despite our poverty rate, we are a city of neighborhoods, and we want everyone to have access to every single neighborhood. We are open, as Councilman Greenlee and I contemplated this. We were open. We listened to the Amazon Prime and all of those other models, and this is not the end of a discussion. We are open as these models evolve and people look to locate around the city, what we can do to ensure that it's not discriminatory. The other thing I like about this bill is that the Human Relations Commission, Rue Landau, who is a very good friend of mine, is going to help us promulgate regulations and policies and around how we implement it. A lot of this is not the legislation, but how we operationalize it. And guess what? I have a lot of faith in Rue, that she's going to give us some really good recommendations and a guideline to implement this right. And if businesses do come forward and legitimately can show us that they don't discriminate, we had the conversation about memberships and the Costco's and all of those things. So it's never an end to a discussion in this legislative body. It is always a continuation and putting a pause button when we see something that could send the wrong message to the people that we are sent here to serve. So I'm very proud to support this. This is not an end of the conversation. And Councilman Greenlee may not be here next year, but I intend to be here next year, and we'll continue to be open about other improvements to it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That appears to conclude the conversation. So this bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Gunnar Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Councilman Squilla. Council President Clark.
Aye. The ayes are 12, the nays are 4, majority of members present, voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 190007.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, establishing and defining the responsibilities of an Office of Immigrant Affairs, fixing the date of a special election for such purpose, prescribing the form of ballot questions to be voted on, and authorizing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Dom. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Gunnar Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Councilman Squilla. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolution?
A resolution celebrating the selection of Yasmin Wards Singh, Unburied Singh, for the 2019 One Book, One Philadelphia program, introduced by Councilwoman Greenlee on behalf of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings to examine the state of Philadelphia's EMS system and the areas where additional support is needed to ensure that the Philadelphia Fire Department is equipped with the necessary tools to perform their job. Introduced by Councilman Heenan.
Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Move for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Education to hold hearings to determine the feasibility for implementing a program in the School District of Philadelphia which provides exposure to CPR training as a part of the high school curriculum prior to a student's graduation. Introduced by Councilman Heenan.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring Linda Norris for her dedication and service to the East Falls community, introduced by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for its adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and celebrating the 40th Blue Cross Broad Street Run, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Streets and Services to hold hearings regarding the City of Philadelphia's commitment to its recycling program, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Green.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Speeches on behalf of the minority. Speeches on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilman Down.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to introduce with me today Vernon Tolbert and Ramir Timley, who's right behind me. They're both sophomores, actually, at Vaux Big Picture High School, 2300 Master. And they're interested in pursuing careers in government. You believe that? They're shadowing me for the day to see if they're still interested. We'll see what happens. But for those of you who don't know about Vaux, it's a great high school. I believe it's in your district.
Absolutely.
It's 2300 Master. I think it's 9th and 10th grade so far. And what they're doing is each child gets to work one day a week, basically, or shadow people one day a week in a job. So if anyone's interested in helping young people this school, please contact Vaux or my office. But this is a great opportunity for young people to experience what goes on in government and even business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Great school. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to remind colleagues that immediately following the council session today, we'll have a lunch briefing in the caucus room with Year Up Greater Philadelphia. Year Up is a national nonprofit that's been around for some time. They're growing their presence here in the city of Philadelphia and the region. What Year Up does is that once someone comes out of high school, they actually provide a Year Up, the opportunity for you to network and intern at a corporation, hopefully getting you a career path. They've done phenomenal work in the city of Philadelphia and its region. I hope all of you will be able to attend the briefing in the caucus room. Lunch will be provided. Also, in recognition of today being Valentine's Day, I hope everyone has a phenomenal day. And also, I'm thinking about Valentine's Day, I'm thinking about one of our musical great poets, Mr. Stephen Morris. Love is in need of love today.
All right. Thank you. That concludes our speeches on behalf of the minority and majority, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, February 21, 2019 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that council stand adjourned until Thursday, February 21st, 2019, 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you all very much.